Vera couldn't see, but she knew for sure that she had just heard someone being murdered.
What should I do?
Work for me. I will pay you 3 times the income of this shop.
Why me?
I can't let the witness roam free. Rules: don't talk to anyone, including the guards here. Don't wander around, always be ready for me.
I understand.
The November night bit at the skin with a damp chill. For Vera, the cold had a scent. The smell of ozone from the recent rain, mixed with the faint steam of asphalt. The air felt heavy, oppressive, as if the city were holding its breath. Vera took a deep breath, trying to parse another aroma. There was the smell of anise from the kitchen of La Scogliera restaurant at the end of the street, and closer, the spicy sweet scent of the Emperor's kiss. Dahlia bouquet she clutched tightly. A last-minute order, a special request, a payment too large to refuse.
Delivery to the side door, miss. Our client desires privacy.
The voice on the phone had said this afternoon. So here she was, standing at the mouth of a narrow alley beside the luxurious restaurant. Her cane tapped softly against the uneven stone surface, giving her a mental map of the space around her. To her left, a cold, damp brick wall. To her right, the open space of the alley ending in the hum of a massive cooling unit. She had been waiting for 10 minutes. Far longer than expected. The mysterious client, Mr. Rossi, was supposed to be waiting for her. A sense of unease began to creep up her spine, colder than the night air. This was a part of the city she tried to avoid, a place where money and power whispered in dark corridors. The scent of the dahlias in her hands was starting to feel sickening. Too sweet amidst the tension. She decided to wait 2 more minutes before leaving. 1 minute passed in a silence, broken only by the dripping of water from a gutter above her. And then the silence shattered. Not by the sound of Mr. Rossi's footsteps, but by 2 pairs of hurried footsteps entering the alley from the other end. One pair sounded heavy and panicked, their rubber soles squeaking on the wet asphalt. The other, expensive leather shoes, sounded calm, measured, and merciless. Instinct told Vera to freeze. She held her breath, pressing her body against the cold brick wall, hoping her permanent darkness could swallow her whole.
I'm begging you, Conti. I can fix this.
A voice trembled, full of panic. It was a voice drenched in fear. Then the second voice answered, and the very air in the alley seemed to freeze. The voice was flat, deep, and without the slightest tremor. So calm it was more terrifying than any scream. It was the voice of a predator that had already ensured its prey had nowhere to run.
Your chances have run out, Rico.
Vera felt her heart stop. Conti. The name echoed in her mind, a name sometimes spoken in fearful whispers by the merchants at the market.
I have a family. Give me time. I'll pay you back double.
Rico's voice broke into a pathetic sob. A moment of silence. Vera could hear Rico's trembling exhale. Then came a small, sharp sound that would be forever etched in Vera's memory. Click. The sound of a silver Zippo lighter's lid being flipped open with a single flick of a thumb. Psh! The flint wheel spinning, igniting a flame Vera couldn't see. But she could feel its heat change the air temperature near her for a split second. The calm voice spoke again, closer now, cold as ice.
The problem, Rico, is that I don't need your money. I need to send a message.
A choked sound, a brief struggle that sounded wet and awful. Then, a heavy, wet thud as a body hit the ground. The ensuing silence was far more horrifying than the noise itself. The silence screamed. Vera's grip on the bouquet weakened. A few dahlia stems fell silently to the ground, their soft petals now touching the filth of the alley floor. The breath she had been holding finally escaped in a nearly inaudible, trembling gust. Clack! The lighter was closed. The sound of finality. The pair of leather shoes began to move unhurried. Each step sounded steady, calm, as if its owner had just concluded a routine business matter. They were approaching Vera, who stood frozen at the alley's entrance. Panic paralyzed her. She couldn't run. She couldn't scream. She could only stand there, a statue in her own darkness, praying she wouldn't be seen. The footsteps passed her, so close that Vera could feel the slight shift in the air. And for a moment, a new, sharp scent stabbed at her senses, cutting through the smell of rain and flowers, the expensive fragrance of sandalwood cologne, tobacco, and something else. Something metallic, coppery, and primal. The scent of blood, The footsteps continued on, turned the corner and vanished, leaving Vera alone in the alley with the silence, a corpse she couldn't see, and the scent of death clinging to the air. Her hands trembled violently. The dahlia bouquet slipped completely from her grasp, falling in a heap at her feet. The petals that were supposed to be the symbol of an emperor's kiss now lay stained in what would soon be a murder scene. Vera didn't know how long she stood there, frozen, when police sirens began to wail in the distance. But one thing she knew for sure, that calm, cold voice and the distinctive sound of the silver lighter would haunt her forever. She had heard the voice of a ghost, and she didn't know that the ghost now knew of her existence. The approaching wail of sirens pulled Vera from her paralysis. The sound tore through the alley's silence, a deafening alarm to the outside world. But for Vera, it was an anchor yanking her back to the horrifying reality. She had to leave. Before they arrived, before the questions began, she had to disappear from this place. But her feet refused to move. They were rooted to the same spot, where the echo of a falling body still seemed to vibrate through the ground. Her empty hands felt cold, still able to feel the shape of the bouquet of flowers that now lay crushed at her feet. The spinning blue and red lights reflected off the opposite wall, creating flashes that Vera could sense as a sudden change in intensity around her, even through her closed eyelids. Too late. 2 uniformed officers approached quickly.
Police, don't move.
Vera raised her trembling hands in a gesture of surrender.
I didn't see anything.
She whispered, the words feeling bitter and ironic on her tongue. The on-site interrogation felt like a blurry nightmare. An older detective with a weary voice, named Mr. Rogers, asked the same questions over and over.
Are you sure you didn't see his face?
I'm blind, sir.
Vera answered for the 3rd time, her voice barely a whisper.
But you were here. What did you hear?
Vera tried. She described the quiet footsteps, Rico's pleading voice, and that piercingly cold voice.
His voice. It was deep. So calm. Devoid of emotion.
What kind of calm?
Detective Rogers sighed, the scratching of his pen on his notepad sounding impatient.
A lot of people have calm voices, miss.
Then there was the sound of a lighter.
Vera added, her tone slightly stronger.
Very distinctive. Click, snap. Like a silver Zippo.
The detective stopped writing.
A lighter, that's it.
It's the clearest thing,
Vera whispered. She didn't tell them about the scent of cologne and blood. How could she explain that without sounding insane? After an hour that felt like an eternity, they finally let her go. They took her name, the address of her flower shop, and put her in a taxi. She was just a useless witness, a blind girl who was unfortunately in the wrong place at the wrong time. For them, her case was closed. But for Vera, the case had just been blown wide open in her mind. During the ride home, every sound outside the taxi felt threatening. A car horn sounded like a scream, the screech of brakes like a struggle. She hugged herself, trying to ward off a chill that came not from the air conditioning, but from deep within her bones. The echo of that ice-cold voice and the click of the lighter kept replaying in her head, a lullaby from hell. Arriving at her small apartment above the shop, the first thing she did was lock the 3 deadbolts on her door. She leaned against it, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Safe. But the feeling was a lie. She shed her clothes, tossing them into a corner as if they were contaminated. She could swear she could still smell the faint scent of sandalwood and blood clinging to her scarf. Under the hot shower, she scrubbed her skin raw, trying to wash away not just the dirt, but the memory of that night. But she couldn't wash away what she had heard. The voice had seeped into her soul. On the other side of the city, at the top of a skyscraper that pierced the clouds, Alessio the ghost Conti poured himself a glass of Amaro. A fire crackled softly in the modern fireplace before him, its light dancing across the glass walls that revealed a panoramic view of the glittering city below. The door to his study opened silently. Luca, his loyal right-hand man, entered and stood respectfully.
It's done,
Luca reported.
Rico will no longer be a problem. The police have left the scene.
Alessio sipped his drink, his eyes never leaving the flames.
Traces?
He asked, his voice the same calm whisper from the alley.
Clean, except for one thing.
Luca said carefully.
There was a witness.
The glass in Alessio's hand stilled. He turned slowly, his dark eyes now fixed on Luca, demanding an explanation without a word.
A girl.
Luca continued, sensing the shift in the room's temperature.
The police questioned her. Apparently, she was there to deliver a flower order.
Alessio raised a slight eyebrow. An unnecessary complication.
Description?
None. She's blind.
A silence fell over the room, broken only by the crackling fire. Alessio showed no reaction. His face remained a perfectly sculpted marble mask. Luca, ever the pragmatist, felt the need to offer the obvious solution.
She can't visually identify you, boss, but she heard everything. She's a loose end. We should...
A florist, you say?
Alessio cut in, his voice still calm, but there was a new note in it, a note of cold curiosity.
Yes, boss. She has a small shop in the old district.
Alessio turned his back completely to face the window, gazing down at the countless twinkling city lights below. Somewhere among those lights was a blind girl, whose heart was probably still pounding in fear because of his voice. A girl who lived in the world of flowers. The same world as his own secret obsession. Fate has a strange sense of humor.
No.
Alessio said softly, surprising Luca.
We won't touch her. Not yet.
He placed his glass on the marble table with a soft clink.
Find out everything about her.
Alessio commanded, his eyes now glinting with an unreadable light, like a predator that had just found a rare species that piqued its interest.
Her name, her habits, where she lives, everything.
He paused, his reflection cast against the backdrop of the helpless city.
I want to meet her myself.
3 days passed in a fog of anxiety. For Vera, her once familiar world now felt alien and full of traps. Her flower shop, Bud of Hope, which used to be a haven of fragrance and tranquility, now felt like a fragile glass cage. Every time the bell above the door chimed, her body would tense, her heart hammering, anticipating the footfalls of the same leather shoes. That Friday afternoon, the bell chimed softly. A courier delivered a long box with no sender's name.
For Miss Vera,
was all the courier said. With slightly trembling fingers, Vera opened it. Inside, lying on a bed of black satin, was a single white dahlia. Not an ordinary dahlia, she traced it with her fingertips. Its petals were layered like a dancer's dress, with perfectly pointed tips. Its scent was clean, almost fragrance-free, like fresh fallen snow. This was a very expensive and rare flower. She knew the variety, a Tsukiyori no Shisha, messenger from the moonlit night. There was no card, no message, just the beautiful silent white flower. Instead of feeling flattered, a sense of dread enveloped her. A nameless gift felt like faceless surveillance. She placed the flower in a separate vase behind the counter, trying to ignore it. Half an hour later, the bell on the door chimed again. This time the sound that followed was different. Not the hurried steps or the casual stroll of a regular customer. These were the same footsteps from the alley. Slow, rhythmic, and confident. Expensive leather shoes on her wooden floor. It was as if all the air had been sucked out of the shop. Vera froze in place, her hands gripping the edge of the counter. The man stopped a few feet in front of her. Vera could feel his presence, a dense, powerful silence. He said nothing, as if giving her a moment to feel her terror.
Good afternoon.
The man finally said. Vera's heart plummeted to her stomach. That voice. It was coated in honey, smooth, deep, and cultured. It sounded like someone who frequented art galleries and opera houses. But beneath that velvet layer, Vera could hear it. The same foundation of ice. The cold, emotionless undertone that would haunt her for the rest of her life. It's him. Oh God, it's him.
Good afternoon,
Vera replied, trying desperately to keep her voice from shaking.
How can I help you?
I'm looking for an expert.
The man said, his voice gliding smoothly.
A true artist, not just a vendor. And everyone says this is where I can find one.
Vera swallowed hard.
You're too kind.
I'm Mr. Conti.
He said, introducing himself.
I am a collector.
Conti, the same name. A coincidence? Or a cruel game? Vera felt sick.
A collector of what, Mr. Conti?
Dahlias.
He answered, and Vera could hear the faint smile in his voice.
The most complex, most challenging, and most satisfying of flowers. I have a private greenhouse. My collection is quite valuable. I need someone with the right touch to care for them.
The man walked slowly through the shop, Vera followed him with her hearing, every step making the hair on her arms stand up. He stopped near a pot of café au lait dahlias.
This flower,
Mr. Conti said.
it needs the morning warmth but dislikes the afternoon heat. Its soil must be moist but not wet. It's fussy, like all beautiful things in this world.
Vera was stunned by his knowledge. She also sensed something else in his voice. As he spoke about the flowers, a genuine passion. It was a confusing paradox. Could a monster love something so beautiful so deeply?
I will pay you triple your monthly earnings from this shop,
Mr. Conti continued, standing before Vera again.
just to tend to my garden for a few hours each day.
The offer was staggering. Triple? It was more than enough to fix the shop's leaky roof and pay off the rest of her mother's medical debt. It was a way out, a golden chain offered by the devil. Her instinct screamed, "Run! Don't trust him!" The voice in her head screamed that this was the man from the alley, come to silence her in the most bizarre way possible. But her logic and her desperation argued fiercely. He doesn't know it's you. If he wanted to kill you, he would have done it already. This is just a job. Take the money, survive.
Why me?
Vera asked, her voice trembling. There was a short pause. Vera could feel the man's gaze on her, assessing her, measuring her.
Because I believe
Mr. Conti said softly.
that someone who cannot see beauty with their eyes can feel it in a much more profound way, with the soul. My flowers deserve that.
The words trapped her. He was praising her disability, turning it into a unique strength. It was the most manipulative and yet most sincere compliment she had ever heard. With a heart pounding from a mixture of terror and a flicker of perverse hope, Vera made the decision that would define the rest of her life.
All right,
She whispered.
I'll take the job.
The smile in Mr. Conti's voice widened.
A wise decision, Miss Vera.
He placed a business card and a contract on the counter. The paper was thick and expensive.
My driver will pick you up tomorrow morning at 9.
Welcome to my team.
With that, he turned and walked out. His steady footsteps receded, and the chime of the bell marked his departure, leaving Vera alone in the shop that now felt cold and empty. Her trembling hand fumbled across the counter, finding the business card. Next to it, her fingers accidentally brushed against the petals of the mysterious, white dahlia that had arrived earlier. Cool, silky smooth, and for some reason, it now felt like the beginning of a very big lie. Saturday morning came quickly. At precisely 9 o'clock, a silent, black sedan pulled up in front of Bud of Hope. Vera knew it was his car even before the engine was fully cut. Its expensive, silent aura felt different from the other cars on the street. A man opened the door for her. He said nothing, just gave a brief nod, a gesture Vera could feel from the shift in the air. This driver, whom Vera would later learn was named Franco, was part of the same machine as his master, efficient, quiet, and slightly intimidating. The journey felt surreal. Inside the car, Vera was isolated from the city's hustle and bustle. The luxurious scent of genuine leather filled her senses. No radio was playing. After about 20 minutes, the car's vibration changed as they moved from smooth asphalt to a gravel road. Shortly after the car stopped, Vera heard the hum of a heavy electric motor, followed by the sound of a massive iron gate closing behind them. Clang. The sound felt so final, as if the outside world had just been erased from the map. Franco opened the door and helped her out. The air here was different. Cleaner, cooler, with the scent of pine trees and damp earth. The silence here was also different. Not an empty silence, but a full, watched silence. Vera could sense the presence of several other people in the distance, standing still as statues. The guards.
This way, Miss Vera.
Vera jumped. Mr. Conti's voice came from her right, closer than she had anticipated. Today his voice sounded more relaxed, as if he were in his natural habitat.
Good morning, Mr. Conti.
Vera replied, trying to maintain her composure.
Morning.
He returned.
I hope the journey was comfortable. Come, let me show you my pride and joy.
He led Vera down a gravel path. Their footsteps were the only sounds breaking the silence. Then he stopped in front of a door. Vera heard a key slide into a lock and the door opened. Instantly, a new world greeted her. A wave of warm, humid air washed over her face, carrying with it an explosion of aromas so rich it made her slightly dizzy. The scent of fertile soil, organic fertilizer, and most dominant of all, the fragrance of dozens of different dahlia varieties. some sweet like honey, others spicy, and some fresh like fruit. It was accompanied by the sound of trickling water from an irrigation system, or perhaps a small fountain somewhere.
Oh my God.
Vera whispered involuntarily.
Precisely.
Mr. Conti said, a note of genuine satisfaction in his voice.
Welcome to my sanctuary.
The greenhouse was a paradise. Vera could feel it from the acoustics of the vast, high-ceilinged space. She could imagine rows upon rows of neatly arranged plants, a living library of flowers. For the next hour, Vera forgot her fear. She was completely immersed in her work. She walked between the rows of flowers, Mr. Conti following her in silence. Her fingers danced over the leaves, feeling their texture, checking their moisture. The tip of her nose sniffed the soil near the roots.
The soil in this eastern row is a bit too dense, sir,
she said after a few moments.
The roots need more air. We'll need to add some perlite.
She stopped at another row.
I smell a very faint trace of powdery mildew on this Penhill Dark Monarch row. It's very early, but we must treat it immediately before it spreads.
She worked with an instinct and expertise that made Alessio, observing her in silence, feel a mixture of admiration and a strengthening sense of possessiveness. He had not been wrong in his choice. This girl could truly see his flowers. When Vera finished her initial inspection, she stood in the middle of the room, feeling more alive than she had in days.
Your garden is magnificent, Mr. Conti.
It is yours to care for, Miss Vera.
He replied.
But there are a few rules.
His tone shifted slightly, reverting to being more formal, colder. The businesslike aura took over again.
My driver, Franco, will always be the one to bring you here and take you home. The main gate is always closed. While you are here, you are only permitted on the path from the pavilion gate to this greenhouse, and of course inside here.
He paused, letting his words sink in.
Do not try to wander, and do not speak to the guards. They are here for security, for our mutual good.
Our mutual good. The words sounded like polite shackles. This paradise, it turned out, had invisible walls.
I understand,
Vera replied softly. The journey home felt entirely different. The warmth and life of the greenhouse had now been replaced by the cold, silent interior of the car. Vera clutched her work bag, inside which were a few soil and leaf samples. She had landed her dream job, in the most beautiful place she had ever seen. Yet, as the car passed through the massive iron gates that opened and closed, behind her once more, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just signed a contract to be the gardener in a very, very beautiful gilded cage, and the owner of that cage was a man, with the voice of an angel and secrets as cold as hell. The weeks passed into a strange rhythm. In the mornings, Vera was the anxious owner of Bud of Hope, where every chime of the bell still sent a jolt of alarm down her spine. But every day at 9 o'clock, she would be picked up by the silent black car and transported to her other world. The greenhouse had become her territory. Her fear of Mr. Conti hadn't vanished, but it was being eroded by routine and the surrounding beauty. Inside that warm, humid paradise, she was the expert. She could breathe more easily, her fingers dancing over soil and leaves, diagnosing and treating each plant with sharp intuition. Mr. Conti was often there, more often than Vera had expected. Sometimes he would just sit on an iron bench in the corner, watching Vera work in a comfortable silence. Other times he would walk by her side, asking questions about soil pH or pest prevention. Inside the greenhouse, he wasn't a mafia boss or a wealthy client. He was just a man who loved his flowers. This paradox continued to haunt Vera. The same man whose footsteps radiated danger could speak of the fragility of a Shiloh Noel, dahlia's petals with such tenderness. Meanwhile, the mysterious gifts kept coming. Every few days, a perfect white dahlia would arrive at her shop. No name, no message. There was now a row of slender vases on her back window, each holding a single stem, like a line of silent white ghosts. One day, while pruning dry leaves, Vera dared to test the waters.
It seems I have a secret admirer,
she said lightly, trying to gauge Mr. Conti's reaction. Alessio, who was inspecting the irrigation system, stopped.
Oh?
He sends me white dahlias every few days. Always a different variety, but always pure white.
Alessio walked closer, his voice remaining calm.
Perhaps he is someone who appreciates beauty in silence, someone who knows that the purest color doesn't need to shout to be noticed.
The answer was so poetic and evasive it sent a shiver down Vera's spine. Their relationship reached a turning point on a cloudy afternoon. Rain was falling heavily outside, creating a soothing music on the greenhouse's glass roof. A new bud had bloomed that morning, an Eveline dahlia, perfectly round like a snowball.
This one is different.
Alessio said, his voice softer than usual.
Its petals curve inward as if it's holding a secret. You have to feel it to understand.
Before Vera could respond, she felt a surprising warmth as Alessio took her hand. Her heart stopped. His hand was large and strong, yet his touch was incredibly careful. He guided her fingers toward the flower.
Feel it,
he whispered. First, Vera felt the smooth, cool texture of the petals, like porcelain. Then she felt something else, something stronger. The warmth of Mr. Conti's hand still holding hers, his thumb gently pressing the back of her hand, and the slightly rough texture of his skin, faint calluses that signaled this man was also used to working with his hands, in ways Vera probably couldn't imagine. An electric jolt shot up Vera's arm. This was their first physical contact, a breach of boundaries that felt both terrifying and achingly intimate. For a moment, she forgot who this man was. She forgot the cold voice in the alley that night. All that existed was the warmth of his hand, the scent of the flower, and the sound of the rain. She pulled her hand away quickly, too quickly.
It's beautiful,
she whispered, her face feeling hot. Alessio said nothing more. When Vera glanced in his direction, an old, lingering habit, she could sense him take a step back, as if rebuilding the wall between them. The intimacy vanished as quickly as it had appeared. That night, when Vera returned to her quiet shop, she found another white dahlia waiting for her, an Eveline. She took the flower from its vase. This time, as her fingers traced the inwardly curved petals, she no longer thought of a nameless admirer. Her mind was filled with only one thing, the memory of the warmth of a monster's hand. In his secret garden, that symbol of death was slowly and terrifyingly beginning to feel like a caress. Far from the silence of the dahlia garden, in a restaurant backroom thick with cigar smoke, Vera's name was spoken for the first time, by someone other than Alessio and his men.
So, the ice wall has a weakness,
Marco Bellini said with a grin. He was a man with a wide jaw and small eyes that glinted with greed. He was the antithesis of Alessio, coarse, impatient, and he enjoyed violence in a vulgar way.
A witness. A blind flower girl. How poetic.
His men laughed.
Conti must think she's harmless.
Marco continued, swirling a glass of grappa.
He's become too arrogant in his perfection. He thinks no one will find this little loose thread.
What's the plan, boss?
The plan?
Marco downed his drink in one gulp.
We take the girl. We don't kill her right away. We show the whole city that the untouchable ghost can be beaten. We will humiliate him. After that, then we silence the girl forever.
His eyes gleamed.
It's time the ice wall learned the meaning of fear.
For Vera, the next few days felt like a strange peace. The brief intimacy in the greenhouse had changed something. Her fear of Mr. Conti was now mixed with other, more complex feelings, curiosity, fascination, and a dizzying sense of danger. She began to deceive herself, convincing herself that the man in the flower garden was the real Mr. Conti, while the cold figure outside was just a mask he had to wear. That evening, she closed her shop later than usual. The night air was cool, and she decided to walk for a bit before calling a taxi. She tapped her cane on the familiar pavement, enjoying the smell of bread from the bakery at the end of the street and the sound of rustling leaves above her. That peace shattered in an instant. A van stopped abruptly beside her, the screech of its tires deafening. The side door was yanked open with a rough slide. Before Vera could react, 2 pairs of rough hands gripped her arms. The smell of cheap cigarettes and sour sweat invaded her senses.
Come with us quietly, sweetie,
a hoarse voice growled. Vera's heart felt like it would explode. She screamed, struggling with all her might. Her cane slipped from her grasp and clattered loudly onto the asphalt. They began to drag her toward the van. Suddenly there was a chaos of sounds. Another screech of tires. A car door slamming. The sounds of a fast, brutal fight. The thud of punches, grunts of pain, and then 2 heavy thumps as bodies hit the ground. It all happened in less than 5 seconds. The grip on Vera's arms was released. She staggered, confused and trembling. The sudden silence was just as frightening as the noise had been.
Miss Vera?
Vera flinched. It was the voice of Franco, Mr. Conti's ever-silent driver.
Come with me, quickly. You are not safe here.
Franco said, his voice calm but urgent. Someone picked up her cane from the ground and placed it back in her hand. Franco's strong but polite hand took her elbow and guided her into the black sedan that was now parked behind the van. The door slammed shut, isolating her from the chaos outside. Vera sat frozen in the back seat, trying to process what had just happened. She was attacked. And she was saved. Saved by the same people who drove her to her gilded cage every day. That meant they were always watching her. In his penthouse, Alessio was listening to an opera recording when Luca rushed in, breaking protocol for the first time.
Boss,
He said, slightly out of breath.
Bellini made a move.
The music stopped instantly.
Explain.
Alessio said, his voice ice cold.
They tried to abduct the witness, the girl. Near her shop, our men stopped them.
A heavy silence filled the room. Alessio didn't move, but Vera, had she been there, would have felt the change in the air, the once calm, cold aura now churned into a frozen storm. He slowly placed his crystal glass on the table. The sound it made was louder than it should have been. Marco Bellini had dared to touch something that was his. She was no longer just a witness. No longer just a florist. Vera had become his the moment he decided not to kill her, and Bellini had crossed that line.
Bring her.
Alessio commanded, his voice low and full of menace.
Bring her here now.
An hour later, Vera found herself standing not in front of the greenhouse, but in the magnificent lobby of the main pavilion. Franco escorted her to the door of a vast study. Alessio stood by the window, his back to her.
Mr. Conti.
Vera whispered.
They know about you, Vera.
He said, turning to face her. He used her first name for the first time, without any polite title. The cultured voice of Mr. Conti had vanished, replaced by the cold, authoritative voice of the man in the alley.
Marco Bellini knows who you are. Tonight's attack was just the beginning.
Vera trembled.
What's going to happen?
You will stay here.
Alessio stated, his tone leaving no room for argument.
Starting tonight, in one of the guest rooms in this pavilion. Your shop will be closed temporarily. All your needs will be provided for.
This wasn't an offer. It was a command.
Stay here?
It's not a request.
Alessio asserted, stepping closer. Vera could feel the aura of power and controlled rage emanating from him.
It's the only way you stay alive.
The door behind her closed softly. Vera was now well and truly trapped. She stared in the direction of the man. She couldn't see, her savior and her captor. The greenhouse had been her gilded cage, but now, this entire estate had become her prison fortress. And its warden was the same monster who had sworn to protect her.